Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Thursday, August 6th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And today we're talking about game running tips. And you know what? We're going to look at some weather rules. And there's quite a bit in this little PDF. I threw this in as part of the variant rules pack. It's a good solid set of weather rules that make it easy to put weather together and make it potentially hazardous. I mean, it's pretty to describe weather from time to time in your game, and it's important for the campaign to have some signs of, I'm not saying it's real, I'm saying realism, which is not the same thing. Anyway, morning, Skull and Pants. How you doing there, Mike? What's going on? We got a little bit of weather. We're getting a little bit of weather today. Anyway, I need to do a couple of things, which includes going into here and doing that ease of access thing on the cursor to give myself a nice little cursor to work with so everyone can see what I'm doing. There we go. Look at that. Smack, 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 smack. Yeah. It's that whole Batman and Robin meme, right? Let's see. What we should do is start off, though. Come on. Right here. And let's do this. Get a nice view of it. There we go. That's the cover, baby. That is the cover. How's the weather? Well, I'll tell you. It's been nice in Lake Geneva for what it's... I know that was meant to be a joke, but you got me thinking. That weather in Lake Geneva for the last few days has been really nice. It's supposed to kick back up into the low 80s this weekend. Tomorrow and onward, I think we're looking at 80s. But we had some, like right now it's 71 degrees. It's supposed to get up to 76 today. But then tomorrow, Saturday, 79, 85 on Sunday. 80s on through all of next week, according to the 10-day forecast from the Weather Channel. So, what are you going to do? We had a little bit of a break there, and partly sunny today, mostly cloudy. Most of the beginning Saturday on through next Thursday, mostly cloudy. That, combined with mid-80s temperatures, low to mid-80s, is kind of annoying. But maybe that'll take some of the pressure off it. But this is weather, and these are OGL rules. And if we go all the way to the last page, we can have a little look-see here. Where'd it go? There we go. Weather, copyright 2004. This is when I put this out. SRD in the section 15, as almost everything that you do that's going to be D&D related will need to have. Wildscape, copyright 2003 Fantasy Flight Games, is the only other Section 15 reference. So where did I get these weather rules? One can only guess. I will say this. If you're looking up Fantasy Flight books from that era, a lot of them were pounded out by Mike Merles back in his freelancer days before he joined up and did whatever he did to 4th edition and then on to 5th edition. But, man, that guy was churning stuff out during the early 2000s, mostly for Fantasy Flight, but for some other people too. And it was just book after book. I think Dungeon Craft is one of his too. I think you will see covers sometime for this book that say Wild Craft, even though the listing will say Wildscape, like on Amazon or Goodreads or maybe on eBay in some listings. And occasionally you'll see a cover that actually says Wild Craft. But sometimes you'll see Wildscape on the cover. And most times the book is referenced as Wildscape. And in the section 15, as you saw, Wildscape was the name. They'll say things like various author and whatever, but if you check the credits inside the book, you'll see it's almost all Mike Merle's pounding out these kind of peripheral rules to the core rules. Weather. They have a short section in the DMG on weather, as they have always done with DMGs, but Morning Red Barn Games. But you will see that these rules get a lot more extensive, and these rules stay pretty useful throughout. So, crappy cover. It's 2004. It is what it is. And here we go. Here is the table of contents. Let's make it a little bit smaller so we can see it all. You'll notice I hyperlinked this. I don't know if this is something, like I said, if you can get the original, there's a lot more stuff in there. It's a full, 140-page book, something like that probably. And it has all sorts of, but the one chunk of rules that I grabbed out of it that I thought were particularly useful were the weather rules. I got a ton of books back in the day for super cheap just before Joker's Wild, which was a game store franchise chain in and around the Chicagoland area and in Chicago. They had one down at Water Tower Place. They were now Schaumburg, Lombard. The first one I ever went to was when I was working in Deerfield in the late 70s, I think. And they were, poster shop and adult games, card games with, dirty things on them and whatever. How do you describe that stuff without coming off like an idiot? They had, the little bird that'd go down into the water, pop back up, all sorts of executive desk toys, the little clacking, stupid things like that. Blacklight posters, a lot of... Joker's Wild was responsible for getting me into a lot of different artists that were of the day, like Rodney Matthews and Frazetta and all the other ones that were the Hildebrandt brothers for sure, because they had all these posters, and posters were a real thing back then. Got a few up here, but they also, Death Angel Shadow Hate 2004. Lots of weather that year in Central Florida. Right on. It sure did, man. Yeah. It was crazy. I miss those days, those Red Barn Games. Because you were 16 years younger. You didn't know any better, right? The point I was going to make was, at one point there were 17 at their peak. There were 17 of these Joker Wild stores. And I think in the early 2000s, they were down to about 13. They'd closed a few crappy locations. They were mall stores for the most part. So as malls declined, so did most stores that were mall stores. And they got to a point where they were down to 3 stores, the Lombard, the Schaumburg, and the Water Tower stores. They closed all the rest of them. They took all their stock, especially RPG stuff, and moved it to those stores and all their stock. And they, you could get little pewter wizards or dragons holding a crystal and lots of stuff like that sort of thing. And stickers and buttons and stuff around the counter, tons of displays of stuff like that. And they had GW miniatures too at a few of their stores. So they moved all their stuff to the 3 stores, and in the last 10 weeks that they kept those 3 open before they were closed completely, every week they added 10% off on all their products. So the first week 10, 20 the next week, until the last week they were at everything that they had left was like 90% off. Of course, by then most people had pulled the trigger on the things that they were saying, well, I'll get this if it's still here when it's 40, whatever. And oh man, I got boxes and boxes of like Bretonian archers and GW goblins with the paints in the pack, the starter kind of demo kits or whatever you call them, intro kits, I suppose, and got a bunch of Rohan horsemen, for like all of these I was getting like at 70, 80, and finally they still had some stuff there at 90% off. It was like $3 for a box of goblins. Heck yeah. So I just grabbed a ton of that stuff. Anyway, also with RPG books. And, there was that big boom in the D20 era, and there was a bunch of stuff printed. And stuff had pretty much a shelf life. If it didn't sell in the first 3 months, it was going in the discount bin at places like this because they had to make room for it. More and more and more stuff. Fantasy Flight, several other companies were just churning out 2, 3, 4 books a month and taking advantage of that whole D20 boom. And good for them, and definitely good for customers because there was a ton of stuff out there. You could say it hurt the industry, but no, because the industry would have been, if the industry is here and then it has a boom and then it busts and it goes a little below there and then it takes a while to get back up to there, it's way better off for a while being up there and just having a little bit below than it is just being like this the whole time. Absolutely. Anybody who tells you that that was a bad thing for the industry, whether it's for game stores or companies or anybody, just laugh. Just, wonder why they don't like making money and don't like making more money for a period of time. Companies come and go. That's just the nature of things, and they have to adapt. That's capitalism 101. If you can't find a way to keep yourself relevant and keep your company producing products that people want, then you're not really a company. You don't want to be a charity and pretend you're a company. Beg people to buy stuff from you. Just put it out there. If it's good, you'll find an audience. A little marketing is always helpful, of course, but that's why we have Beanie Babies. Oh, wait, no, we don't have those anymore, do we? Anywho, hyperlinked table of contents. That's so cool. There's also bookmarks, because I always like to do all that stuff. Let's see. There we go. That's one thing about this. Boop, boop. We're going to have to do this. One thing about this cursor is it's hard to make it do exactly what I want it to do. It doesn't seem to point just where I need it. Anywho, I'm going to make it a little smaller again. Maybe it's just a little too big. And we'll go back to this. There we go. That's a little better. Anyway, bigify that just a bit. How we doing on time? We're probably halfway through, huh? Almost 15 minutes to the exactness. Well, It's easy enough to go through this one because there's four basic things, right? Or there's three ingredients in weather as they present it: temperature, wind, and precipitation. Remember, all of this is 3.xe, third edition, 3.3.5, whatever. Um, doesn't really matter. For our sake, it's important to look at the various categories. Acidic rain, and they include stuff that's actually beyond just regular old rainfall, right? Because fog can actually, things that will affect the game, particularly things that will affect combat or cause damage or harm, whether they're a hazard or an obstacle. Um, Acid rain can do some damage. Has a DC, a difficulty check or a difficulty check for fortitude save. So you have a saving throw. Um, Translating this to first edition, Luxfire, hey, how you doing? Ink Dweller, howdy. The D20 Glut. Yeah, glut's a weird word. That's like saying I went to a barbecue and they had a food glut. I want food gluts at my barbecues. They have leftovers. Good for them. They can use them up later. But I don't like going to a barbecue and finding out everybody. Oh, we got just enough. We had just enough brats. Everybody get one brat and a half a burger. And if you want cheese on it, let us know now because we have to decide how far the cheese will go. Crazy. How do you use weather in your game? Well, I'll tell you what. Sometimes it's good just as a sign of kind of a narrative touch. Just to have a general idea whether it's raining or not. Obviously, sometimes it has to rain. Any world that has living beings on it is going to need some sort of a climate and weather. And it's more important to make sure you're using it when it's a hazard. So if people are up in the mountains, you're going to want to be figuring out whether there's fog and whether there's snow. Certainly also rain, but high up in the mountains, snow, right? And because that can affect your movement, how long it can take to climb, and how hazardous the terrain is. So most times, those are the times you definitely want to look at it. If you just casually mention it's lightly raining from time to time, or the wind's kind of heavy, because it can put out a torch, but it might make a lantern flicker. Got rain. Does things to skill checks and ranged attacks. Important. Rain will do that. Third edition skill checks. But ranged attacks, that's an easy translation right there. And for sure, it's going to batter down arrows. It's going to be, it's going to make it tough to do any long distance attacks. Meteoric rain. That's crazy. Resting at night, right? Campfires, yep, they can be affected by rain and wind, certainly. Also snow. Fiery stones streak through the sky, slamming into the earth with an explosive force. Meteoric rain pockmarks the land with craters and scorched clearings. Absolutely. And then it goes into, well, yeah, if you take shelter in a building and stuff, what is the building made of? Because there's a whole section here about damage that can happen to the building and when there's going to be a hole knocked in the roof. Again, they have CR, which is challenge rating, which is meant to be comparative to the overall character party level. So if you get 4 people in 4 player characters and they're all level 3, this is on par with something that you would probably be doing to them. These might be getting a lot tougher. Certainly, DC 18s are tough to roll. DC 22, if you're first level, you're screwed, right? 1 minute intervals. plus 0 bonus per interval. Something good to point out. Rain, acidic rain. 10-minute interval. 1d6 non-lethal damage. Non-lethal was the 3rd edition answer to subdual damage. Yeah, that was actually a pretty clever way to fix that up a bit. 1 minute intervals here. So you have to make these DC checks every 10 minutes here, every 1 minute here. So keep that in mind if you're doing some sort of a translation. Meteoric rain, 3d6 damage, 1 minute intervals. So every minute you've got to be rolling this DC or taking this damage. And snow and sleet. Here we go. Accumulations. Because, as they say here, rain, snow is essentially, it's just frozen rain. What it's doing to visibility, what it's doing to generally to the terrain and movement and light sources and open flames and that sort of thing is similar to rain. So check with the rain. But what they get into here is accumulations. So that if you have movement through areas where there's been heavy snow, depending on your size, if you're a small character, medium character, large character, giants moving through the snow. 3rd aspect, right? Or rather, well, temperature, one of the 3 aspects. Temperature scale, appropriate hazard, geography, and climate of a region. Hellish. So again, the stuff they list in here, temperature hazard list is from hottest to coldest. Hot, extreme, high, hot, moderate, cool. Doesn't really do anything, right? Because that's sort of the baseline. It starts to get cold if you're out there for a long time. It can take you down. Freezing, frigid, abyssal. Whew. -1 penalty per interval. So for every 5 minutes you're out there making your DC 15 save, -1 penalty for every 5 minutes you've been experiencing this. So it's a cumulative. It wears you down. 10% chance each hour that any water or potions freeze solid. So there's something to check. Wind, yep, that's the 3rd one. And there she is. So wind is basic wind rules in the core books. This is meant to be an expansion of those. So this is the kind of stuff that's actually going to be potentially hazardous. Causing fallen trees, obscuring dust. There's a strong wind, severe wind, windstorm. Here's a wind effects table. Light, moderate, strong, severe, windstorm, hurricane, tornado. Miles per hour. Sorry, Europe. Sorry, Canada. Doing the MPH stuff here. And what it does to ranged attacks. A little bit of footnoting on this table, so be mindful of that. How can it affect you based on just what size your person is? Wind effect on creatures, there you go. Fortitude DCs. There's our saving throws. Like I say, there's some more detail for some of the categories. Sample storms and conditions. So here they break down what you might have maybe rolled randomly, and it includes a thunderstorm, typical thunderstorm, what it can do, what kind of winds you're going to be at, and you roll percentages on these, right? Is there going to be hail and rain or just rain? Rain, extreme rain, heavy rain, light rain. So really, if you just have these pages, you can get away with not having to deal with a lot of the other stuff, especially if you're just using it for narrative effect. So if you just want to be able to say, well, there's a heavy rain, and here's what it's doing, it's battering you about, and this and that, but you don't want to roll anything, you don't want any torches going out, just want to tell people, you know what, you can't get a fire started, in this heavy rain. Flat, we're not going to roll anything for this. We don't need to, right? It's just an effect that you're going to impose based on this weather condition, and that's fine. It's a pretty high percentage anyway. Do you really want to spend part of your game night every 1 minute, every 10 minutes, having somebody roll to see if they keep getting affected by that? Nah. Just, you know what? Have everybody, you get acid rain, light acid rain, everybody at the table roll a saving throw versus spell, maybe. I don't know. And then maybe breath weapon would be better. Anyway, have everybody at the table roll a saving throw. Anybody who doesn't make the saving throw, take 1d4 damage, whatever. And then you impose that. You know, have people keep track. Don't keep track of all of this. Just every time people start arguing or, you know, well, maybe I would think we should run back to the caves. Well, why don't we just go in the castle? Standing around arguing about it. All right, roll another saving throw. Just keep them moving, you know. Keep that. There's a game running tip for you right there. Heavy snow, light snow, long-term weather. What's the saying? I don't think it's in here, but climate is what you expect and weather is what you get. Right? So generally you have a general idea of what long-term weather will be in a region, in an area, based on several factors: how close to large bodies of water, how close to high ground like mountains, is it out on the plains, and where it is on the planet. How far north, how far south, how close to the equator, how close to a pole. All that stuff's going to affect climate. It'll be very important. Extreme cold table. There's a wind table. Here, let me hold on to those for a second. You need to take a snapshot? I don't care. It's in a PDF in that variant rules pack, though, over on, what's its name? Drive Through RPG, if you want to pick up that, along with that honors and backgrounds and all that other stuff. And then the things on organizations, like cults and stuff like that. We're going to use that. We may go over that next week for the game running tips thing. Or maybe that's better for campaigns on Wednesday. Probably. Cold, mild, there you go. Percentage die table. There's what the wind is like in that type of weather. Cold and wet. Got both of the effects. Heat, extreme. So the majority of this is tables, right? Here we are, page 15 already. And we're getting on in a half hour. So temperate dry, temperate mild, temperate wet. Boom, 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 boom. Back to that. And that is weather. Whether you like it or not. Nice. Oh, I'm so funny. I am so funny. So we will move this back to that. Make our cursor regular size again. And fix it there. There we go. Anywho, where are we at? I guess we're just about out of time. Great old night. I love weather in games. Adds some great realism in my Tomb of Annihilation campaign. We roll for weather at the start of each new day. Not a bad idea. You know, yeah, there's a good game running tip, right? If you do something on the regular and get consistent with it, so that like at the beginning of each game session or at the beginning of each campaign day within, so maybe you do 6 days in a session one time and another time the whole session's about 1 day. Well, if you just make sure you do it regularly and consistently, then you're good to go. Because what players can... Sorry, CMG hats are... I only made 2 of them. I made 2 just to have something to stick on my noggin because I'm a hat guy. But I appreciate you asking. Thank you very much. Maybe someday I can put more of them together. I probably should. People may actually want them. A D&D inspired comic book. Oh, nice. Dungeon, Dragons, Fantasy, Comic, Deepest, Catacombs, CBR.com. So people can go there and look for a D&D inspired comic book. This is very cool. And moving penalties in the wild section. There you go. Meaning cold. Yeah. So I think we've covered all the bases on weather. And what we will do is we will say thank you to everybody. Don't forget the schedule. Building Adventures tomorrow. DM reviews on Saturday. Rules retrospective on Sunday. Weekly news and announcements on Monday. Cartography and world building on Tuesday. Campaign discussion on Wednesday. Back around to game running tips next Thursday. If you're on Twitch, please do follow the channel and make sure you chime in during the live stream, because that is how we know you're not a robot. And if we know you're not a robot, we'll throw you on the list for a drawing we do every week. Just a little thank you. It's a freebie and doesn't cost you nothing. So why not? We're still doing badges for Virtual Gamehole Con, which has been fun. Death Angel's Shadow is now the newest. Most of you have badges. If you wind up winning a second one, let me remind you, always feel free to let me know of someone else in your family or a buddy of yours who you'd like to encourage to go to Virtual Gamehole Con. I'm happy to give the badge out to somebody you suggest. Somebody else in the chat who you know that doesn't have one or has a big family. However you want to do it, once it's been designated as yours, it's yours to do as you want with it. If you already got one and you can't use the second one, feel free to suggest somebody and we'll work it out and make sure they get it. Speaking of Gamehole, I'm going to be running 4 games that weekend for the con. Very cool. If I win, please pass it along to someone else. I will, but I'm going to, if you win, we'll talk in PM and we'll get a suggestion from you. Red Barn Games, everybody else, do me a favor. On Monday, if you're here, if you can be here, let's spend a block of each Monday talking about Gamehole Con upcoming. That's the weekly news and announcement day. And if you want to give me details for the events you're running and the dates you're running, give them to me on that Monday, and we'll just read them off. They'll be part of the show's public record, so that everybody who watches it over the next couple of months will have all that information. And yeah, if it's not this Monday, next Monday. We've got like 3 months. I think it starts on the 5th of November, so there's plenty of time. And I'm sure you're still working out some of the details anyway. I know I am. And yeah, absolutely, Growlite. Give it a shot. This is exactly the perfect time to be trying to run games in virtual tabletop. Hey, if you're following me on YouTube, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a little comment. We're always looking for constructive criticism. And once again, everybody, thank you for popping in and being part of the show. It's a lot of fun. It helps break up my day for sure. It's a good thing. Have a good one. I'll be around tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. again. Adventures tomorrow and every day. So take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.